And we start in Washington as federal workers inch closer to the White House deadline to accept a proposed resignation offer. The Trump administration gave employees until tonight to make that decision. This comes as President Donald Trump continues to push for cutbacks within federal government agencies, through his Department of Government Efficiency. If workers accept the offer, they would be excused from working, but will continue to get paid. At least 40,000 workers have accepted the deal, but we expect that number to climb as we get closer to the deadline. So let's bring in CBS News White House reporter Olivia Rinaldi for more on this. Olivia, we know this deal has not been finalized, and Congress warns these payouts are not even in the budget. So what happens if workers do not resign by tonight?
Yeah, Muga, it's good to be with you. Time is really ticking for federal workers to decide whether or not they're going to take that proposed buyout. We know the Office of Personnel Management gave them until this evening to make that decision. As you mentioned, we have reported that about 40,000 federal workers have already taken that proposed buyout. That's a drop in the bucket for about the 2 million federal workers that there are in the U.S. government. But it's still a very significant number. We do expect that number to rise, especially today, as we know workers are getting emails that tonight is the final deadline to decide whether or not they're going to take that proposed buyout. But as you mentioned, there's already legal challenges around it. Federal labor unions have been pushing back around the legality of even taking this proposed buyout. And Congress has only funded the government through March 14th. So Congress hasn't even agreed upon paying for some of these buyouts. So a lot of questions surrounding what this is actually going to look like going forward, as we're just hours away from when that deadline is set to take effect.
And President Trump is now back at the White House, Olivia, after speaking at the National Prayer Breakfast on Capitol Hill earlier today. He announced 2 executive orders there. So what else came out from his remarks?
Well, another very notable thing that I found today from Trump's remarks at the National Prayer Breakfast was he made this announcement about air traffic control systems in the U.S. specifically. He said he's going to ask Congress to fund a new air traffic control system, completely brand new, and he would like that to be a single standalone bill. Take a listen to what he had to say specifically about that this morning.
I think what is going to happen is we're all going to sit down and do a great computerized system for our control towers, brand new, not pieced together, obsolete like it is land-based, trying to hook up a land-based system to a satellite system. We spent billions and billions of dollars trying to renovate an old broken system instead of just saying, cut it loose, and let's spend less money and build a great system done by 2 or 3 companies, very good companies, specialists. That's all it is.
Now, he's not exactly wrong in saying that the air traffic control system is outdated. One source told me that in some of those towers across the country, they still use floppy disks to update their information systems. They also use these paper strips, and that's how they decide which plane is flying when. They kind of line them up. So when he's talking about bringing this together and updating the system, this is something that advocates in the airline industry have been pushing for a very, very long time. But of course, getting Congress involved, asking for Senator John Thune and Senator Chuck Schumer and Speaker Johnson to all get on the same page about what this looks like in a single standalone bill, it's not going to be the easiest thing to get accomplished.
Yeah, it definitely doesn't seem like it's going to be. What else is on schedule for President Trump today, Olivia?
Well, he's also going to be meeting with some of those House Republicans that I just mentioned, including Speaker Johnson, talking about something very similar, but also different that they can't get on the same page about, and that's the congressional budget. What are Trump's top priorities? He's been meeting with these House Republicans at Mar-a-Lago even before he took the oath of office. Throughout January, he was meeting with them. Now that he's in office, has met with them several times about what the legislative priorities are for this White House and what they can actually accomplish with some of these bills that they would like to put forward. We know that some members of the Senate, including Lindsey Graham, are already moving forward with doing markup on some of the appropriations bills that they would like to see. But it's still House Republicans that Trump is trying to get in line with and figure out what are the priorities, what would they like to see in the next couple of months. As he says, he wants to see some legislation signed within the next couple of months.
Okay. Olivia Rinaldi, thank you so much for your time today. Turning now to our nation's capital and a look inside the room where Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu meets face-to-face with a group of bipartisan lawmakers. Up next on his list, House Speaker Mike Johnson. All of this is happening while President Trump continues to float a U.S. takeover of the Gaza Strip. He doubled down on that idea in this Truth Social post, saying, quote, the Gaza Strip would be turned over to the United States by Israel at the conclusion of fighting. He went on to say the U.S. would work with development teams from around the world to build one of the most spectacular developments of its kind. CBS News congressional reporter Taurean is live on the Hill following all of this for us. Taurean, we know Netanyahu is set to meet with Speaker Mike Johnson today, but do we know how that meeting with Senate Majority Leader John Thune went?
So Mugo Thune or any of the bipartisan senators that was a part of that group who met with Netanyahu have yet to comment on their discussions. But I will say, though, that Democrats in that room are expected to press this Israeli leader on exactly how Trump's plan to occupy Gaza would actually work. Now, the White House has maintained that this will not take military force. I will say, though, a reporter in the room during the photo spray asked outright whether or not it would require U.S. troops for a plan like that to happen. Netanyahu answered succinctly with a no. So that's going to be something we're chasing throughout the day as we're hearing more from senators coming out of that meeting, Mugo.
All right, we'll wait and see what we get from that. And Taurean, let's talk about the Senate now. They've been in session all night. Democrats, they are keeping their promise of holding the floor in protest of Russell Vought's nomination to lead the Office of Management and Budget. Is that still going on? And when could we see Vought finally cross the finish line?
Yeah, Mugo, they're holding the line through a process known as debate. They could do up to 30 hours of debate, which is what we're seeing. I recall the days when Democrats did protest on the Senate floor with pillows, saying they would sleep overnight. This is something that we've seen happen before. But here, though, their real reservations is kind of twofold here. One, because they feel as Trump's next budget chief, he would give unfettered access, Vought would give unfettered access to the president to dismantle, in their mind, the federal government as they see happening now. And then second is because of his association with Project 2025. That's the conservative manifesto by the Heritage Foundation. They don't like his ties to that either, and they feel that they shouldn't give access or grant the confirmation of someone who was previously connected to what Democrats saw as a boogeyman during the presidential election cycle. Well, I should mention the fact that I haven't seen much Republican pushback to Vought's nomination, considering the fact that Republicans have the majority. If 4 senators don't defect, it's likely that we'll see him be confirmed sooner than later and as early as 7 p.m. tonight.
Okay. And Taurean, speaking of Democrats, some of them are expressing concern about Elon Musk and the Department of Government Efficiency. Here's an X post from Senator Chris Van Hollen. He says, quote, hearing reports that Musk's cronies are targeting the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. So what more can you tell us about this?
Yeah, so according to Democrats on Capitol Hill and sources familiar to CBS News, we're hearing that members of the Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, entered the offices of NOAA in Maryland and then also their D.C. office here. We're told by former employees of NOAA that staff have been told they should expect up to 50% cuts in staffing or in headcount and around 30% in budget cut slashes across the board. This is in line with what we've been seeing so far from this government entity ran by Elon Musk. The idea here is cuts across the board in order to get through those policy proposals that could be costly. And they're looking at what they're calling efficiency or lack of efficiency in some of these departments. But as you know, as we've talked about from Democrats before, they feel that one, Elon shouldn't be attached to this, and two, that they're overreaching. And when it comes to the purse, that is a power that lies solely within Congress, not within the executive branch or the president.
Okay. Taurean, I also want to ask you here about lawmakers. They're planning to introduce a bill today that will ban the DeepSeek app from government devices. And they cite security concerns that the app could provide user information to China. So just real quick, remind us what DeepSeek is. And this seems pretty similar to the whole TikTok situation.
Yeah, eerily similar. In fact, the Congressman Josh Grotheimer, who authored the bill to ban TikTok, which ultimately took effect, signed into law by President Biden at the time, and then we saw TikTok go dark for 24 hours, is also behind legislation to ban this app. This is an AI chatbot similar to that of ChatGPT. The difference here, though, is that it's ran by and owned by a Chinese-based company. They being lawmakers, don't like the fact that data connected to this could be fed directly to the Chinese government, which is why they're having pause and they're going forward with this legislation. I will also say, though, that other countries have taken the lead on banning this app in those countries, including South Korea. So it wouldn't be the U.S. taking a stand first, but they're certainly looking at that as precedent for any action they take here on the Hill.
Okay, that's a very important context to have there. Thank you so much, Taurean Small, for your time today.